There we go. So we're on Geren Karunatillika at the top of page 39. Um, so we look here at particles. Some of them aren't really particles. We needn't go into the detailed grammatical terminology of it. It doesn't matter for our purposes. But it's got a number of particles or clitics, sometimes known as enclitics. Clitics. There's something that leans on something else, and they're called clitics because they cannot stand on their own. They do not exist independently. They're, as it were, they're always tacked onto the end of a word, so they lean on it or rely on it. Clitics, oddly enough, it's from the same root as the Sanskrit Shri, not Shri, but Shri, but not your Shri Animala, but the one with the short E, Shri, meaning to lean against. Um, and it's the same word from which we get a clinic. You say clinic because from klinos meaning a bed, which is something that you lie down on. So a clinic, you say, is a place with lying down implements on it. Anyway, these things, these we deal here with various clitics or enclitics, as are sometimes called, that exist only as tacked onto the end of words. The first one that's dealt with here, chi. Um, in Sanskrit, it is chit with a CIT. In Pali, that becomes chi. And it's very, very commonly encountered. And it turns an interrogative into an indefinite. So, for example, kim, interrogative, kim, meaning what? What are you doing, kim? And if you add a chi to it, it turns it into just the indefinite, meaning anything, something. Or in a negative sentence, it means that nothing. Nakinchi karome, I'm not doing anything. And the masculine form, the same idea, the masculine ko, meaning who. Put a chi on the end, kochi, and it turns it into an indefinite instead of the interrogative, who's there? So kochi, kochiati, is there anybody, somebody or anybody, or in a negative sentence, nobody. And kasachi, of anyone. It could be made with other interrogative words as well. For example, kada, meaning when. And if you put a chi on the end, it means sometime, at some time or another. Or in a negative sentence, never. Nakadachi. Now we come to the emphatics. He, ko, eva, nu. They say they all add emphasis, but they add emphasis in slightly different ways. And as the text rightly says here, they're sometimes overlapping. They add a kind of tone to it. For example, the phrase evam evako, evam just means thus. Evam eva, eva can mean only or exactly. So evam eva, just like that, exactly that way. And you can have two together, eva ko, evam eva ko, which is in English we would have a different way of saying it. So evam eva ko in English might mean in exactly that same way. It's a very emphatic way when you get a simile, one of these parables. Evam eva ko in exactly the same way. Evam eva ko bhikkave in exactly the same way, O monks. the particle he, um, again, just a slight emphasis. It places the emphasis of what you're saying on a particular word. In English, or in most languages, you do it. You can often do it just by a verbal emphasis, a spoken stress on the word that you're saying. Um, and this is a way of doing the same kind of thing in writing. It can also mean just only or just. It'll often be apparent from context. You will very often find it used at the beginning of a second line in a couplet where it's expressing some kind of moral truth, where there's expressing some moral truth, and then the he in the second line looks as because or for meaning because in this sense. One of my favorite examples is, in fact, in Sanskrit, but Udyameni karyani siddhyanti namanurathai. It is by effort that you will achieve what you want to achieve. And the second line begins, for the deer do not walk into the mouth of the sleeping lion. In other words, the lion might be the king of the beasts, but even the lion has to make an effort because the deer just won't walk straight into his mouth obligingly when he's asleep. So the second line begins, Nahi suptasya singhasya pravishanti mukhe mriga. Nahi, for not, for the deer will not walk into the mouth of the sleeping lion. As I say, it's often difficult just to explain the meanings of these particles, to say this explanation will always fit that particle. It's often a sense of just feeling your way into it, and it'll be mostly evident by context. Eva is, I suppose you could say, the strongest of these emphatic particles, and it often means just only, none other, exactly that, and excluding everything else. The particle nu is what we call an interrogative emphatic. It asks a question, often then kind of expressing the answer yes. So, or just inviting comment. So nanu, nanu, often written as one word, nanu. Is it not the case that? I think we had it in one of the readings. Is it not the case that? And kinnu. Well, could it be then? Kinnu. Kinnuko sopadipo sankamanto. That's the example given under 1024 on page 39. Kinnuko sopadipo sankamanto. Could it be the case then? Might it be the case then? And here you're kind of expecting the answer no. It is a kind of rhetorical question. Bear in mind that this is kinnu, it's kimnu, kinnu. Kim, the primary meaning is what, but it's sometimes used simply as a question marker, as the first word in a question sentence is often just an indicator that the following sentence is a question. So, so pedipo sankamanto would be a statement that lamp is transmigrating. But kinnu so pedipo sankamanto, could it be the case that? Like a searching question. So any questions or comments so far on this? Congratulations on staying awake so far anyway. This isn't the most exciting part of the studies we do. I do appreciate that. Gets a little bit more exciting as we turn the page onto page 30. I appreciate that's not saying very much. It couldn't be much more boring than page 39. Anyway, sakta down at the bottom. It's from the root shak in Sanskrit. Sakad meaning to be able. And Saka is an indeclinable. It means it doesn't change its form. It means it just is. It is possible, or in a question, is it possible? Usually followed by an infinitive, which we see on the last line of page 39. Saka gantum. It's possible to go. One can go. Sakkam vaditum, it's possible to say.
James, it's Duncan. Are all these particles indeclinable?
They are, yes.
Okay, yeah. Thank you.
And thanks for raising that point, Duncan. If you look back to 10 spot 1 near the bottom of the page, you will see the three examples: kinchi, kochi, kasachi. So the kinchi is the neuter singular, or neuter nominative and accusative. Kochi is the nominative. Nominative masculine. Kochi, someone. And then there's the genitive of ko is kassa. You see there's two examples: kochi, kassachi. So kassa is the genitive of ko. Notice that it's the kochi, kassachi. Those are the two parts that do decline, whereas the chi at the end doesn't. That remains fixed. And it's the same in Sanskrit, where the ending is chit with a t, not chi. So in fact, all of the words that we've dealt with, I mean, the new word, the grammar we've dealt with on this page consists of indeclinable words. And in particular, sakka, don't mistake it for a feminine singular. That's just an indeclinable kind of a general statement form.
Okay, thank you.
Right. I'm glad you raised that point, Duncan. I should have mentioned
it. James, it looks so close to Sakka, king of the gods.
It does. It does look close to that, and it probably comes from the same idea as well. It's that root sak in Sanskrit, shak, meaning to be able. So sakka, the capable fellow, you know, the one who can do. So it looks like it's. I would say it is from that same root as well. And we also have Sakyamuni, another name for the Buddha. Sorry, for the Buddha. That's likely to be from that same root, the Sakya clan, the clan of the capables, the can-do clan, Sakya Muni, the sage of the can-dos. Looking over at the page, so is any more arising? Any comments or queries arising from page 39? Okay, then going over to page 40. Yasma is the ablative form of young, which is the relative which. Yasma, from which, wherefore. And that most often it can just be accurately translated as because. From which reason, therefore, because. it correlates with tasma, literally from the, so yesma, from literally from which, the ablative form, therefore, and tasma, from that, very often has the meaning of for that reason, therefore. So yesma, wherefore, tasma, therefore. They're both ablatives, and this is what's known as the ablative of cause. So if you do something, we can do the same kind of idea in English. If you speak from anger or you speak out of anger, you could use that exact same idiomatic form can be expressed also in Pali and Sanskrit. Just use the ablative form if one is speaking or acting from anger. Gopa bhasati, speaking out of anger, saying those words because of anger. And we've had the idiom, if you look at section 13, near the top of page 30, etamattam, literally that meaning, etamattam vadami, that meaning I call is just a way of saying, I call it in the manner of, or that's what I call so-and-so. We had it in our readings on, help me somebody, where did we find it in our readings? It did occur. Here we are, yes. If you look at page 29, reading 2, it's talking about, is there such a thing? Is there such a thing as lobha? Evam bhante. Abhijatiko aham silha etamattam vadami. Means I call, means I also call lobha abhija. So abhija, I say that meaning. In other words, abhija, I say, is another word for lobha. There's some atta, turns up in all sorts of places, from the root ri, meaning to go. The artha, where you're going, your destination or your goal, also meaning, as in the meaning of a word. And I also discovered, to my delight not so long ago, was this word atta, artha in Sanskrit, which is where you're going, what you're aiming for. It has a slightly different meaning, not entirely different. It's the object of your endeavors, what you're seeking to create. In the Latin word ars artis, which comes into English as art. I hadn't known that before. So the artha in Sanskrit, atta in Pali, and our English word art is, what you are producing out of your skill, are all from that same root. That, the destination of the mind, what your skill is seeking to produce. Were you looking rather puzzled there, Anne? Have I landed properly?
James, atta is used quite a lot in the path of discrimination, and it seems to have a number of meanings. It's very, very confusing.
There's the the path is not the vibhanga. So what was this? Can you say the path of discrimination? Remind me of the Pali title.
Patisambhidamaga.
Patisambhidamaga. Thank you, Sarah. Patisambhidamaga. It does have a number of meanings. And in the early stages of my studies, I got somewhat confused by them, but I did manage, and by a bit of pratisambhida, to get back to, if you take it back to its original meaning, you can see how the other meanings branch out from them. So the atta or arta is from the root iri, meaning to go. And the arta is, we make a noun by adding ta to the stem. You can add ata or ta, one of the ways of making it a verbal noun, adding ata or ta. As for example, to the root sham, you get shamata, which in Pali is samata, from the root sham, meaning literally calming. So arta, the original meaning is just going. That was the original basic meaning. And by extension from that original meaning, the going then comes to mean the destination to which you are going. And therefore the goal, you find it in, in the first line of the Karaniya Metta Sutta, for example. Karaniyang atta kusalena, one who is skilled in the goal, what you're going for. And then it comes to mean meaning. And you can, I hope you can see why, because the answer is a word. What is the word getting at? What is the objective? What is the goal of the word? What's it pointing at? In Arabic, for example, the word used for meaning is the maqsood of a word, means what is aimed at. So it's the destination of the word. What is the word aimed at? What's the word getting at? So you can see the meaning of you can see atta or arta, atta, used in that meaning there. It can also mean wealth, on the grounds that wealth is what we tend to try to accumulate. It's the goal of many of our endeavors, the acquisition of wealth. In fact, in modern Hindi, no, even in Sanskrit, certainly in modern Hindi, the word arthashastra, literally wealth science, would be arthasatta in Pali, but arthashastra, literally the science of wealth, is the modern word used for economics, generally. So beyond that range of meaning, I'm asking you in particular, Duncan, was there any other kind of, what other meanings do you find ascribed to atta? I'm sure there must be more that I haven't included here.
Well, Sarah and I did a course with Usha McNabb on the path of discrimination, and atta was a real stumbling block because it like a lot of Pali, it was being used. The same word was being used in different contexts with different meanings. So it was just it was and it remains highly confusing. I don't know if you've got anything to add, Sarah.
Well, I'm still doing that course, but I've forgotten that thing about atta, I must say.
So it stuck with Duncan, but yes. Managed to pass you by. I don't know, either during this session or at some later stage, if you want to come back with any instances of atta and puzzlement over what was meant, please do. I'd be, you're very welcome to raise it here, and we can discuss it.
That would be great. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So in the phrase given in 13, paragraph 13 near the top of page 30, that is atta, in the sense of the meaning of a word, or the goal or the objective that the word is getting at. Slightly confusingly, it's mostly spelt with an ordinary T without a subdot, therefore the dental T, atta. you will sometimes find it with a subdotted T, ta, which makes it look like the word 8. It is found with that subdotted T sometimes when it's the second member of a compound, meaning the meaning of something, some text. I know some suttata, the meaning of a sutta, meaning a commentary, an explanatory commentary on that text. So although written with a subdotted T, that's just a quirk of Pali phonetics. It is the same word. So we now look at compounds. Compounds is an entire area of study in Sanskrit and Pali. And you have all sorts of different types of compound. I mean, they're dealt with piecemeal as we go along in this in this book. These compounds, Vinyugarahita, wise criticized, wise despised, meaning despised or criticized by the wise. Avidyagato, ignorance gone. And we can often intuitively feel what they mean if a particular kind of context is wise criticized, means criticized by the wise. If you're avidyagata, ignorance gone, I mean you've gone into a state of ignorance, or you're stuck in a state of ignorance. Vijnana lakkhanam, the nature of vijnana, another word for consciousness or discriminatory consciousness, that lakkhana meaning sign. Mostly it will be pretty obvious from the context what is meant. It's not always obvious, and in many cases there are ambiguities. For example, in the Itipiso chant, we have the phrase Vidya Charana Sampanno. Vidya, knowledge, Charana, conduct. Here specifically meaning, by implication, right conduct, and Sampanno, endowed with. So Vidya Charana, knowledge conduct endowed. That's mostly treated as a dvandva, that is a pairing, A and B. So endowed with knowledge and right conduct. And that's how it's normally taken. Until some time ago, it was Mariano who, sadly, because his other duties clash and is not regularly able to be with us, which is a pity. He's always good value. As you discovered for yourself, Simon, the other day when you had the advantage of meeting him face to face. Mariano pointed out that it actually could be endowed with Vidyacharana, not knowledge and good conduct, but the kind of good conduct that is born of the possession of knowledge, the kind of conduct that you would expect or derives from the fact of the possession of knowledge. That was the first time I'd heard it interpreted in that way, but linguistically, it's entirely feasible. So it could be either. Simon, please.
There's another interesting one in the Kundalya Sutta, where the Buddha is asked by Kundalya what he teaches, and he teaches Vidya Vimutti. So that can either be a dvanda, I teach knowledge and deliverance, or I teach, if you look at it instrumentally, I teach deliverance by means of knowledge.
It could, and yeah, I mean, linguistically, either is equally valid. Mm. And in many cases, the ambiguity just remains. Mostly, it doesn't matter too much. I suppose there have to be instances where it does matter. I can't think of any in my head offhand. Do you have a preferred interpretation, Simon, of a Vijjavimutti?
In the Kundalya Sutta, the context is all about gaining knowledge.
Sorry, say again?
In the Kundalya Sutta, in that case, it's all about gaining knowledge. And so I would tend to see it as instrumental.
Yeah.
Knowledge, you are thereby released.
Yeah, of course, because the Suttas tree, there are various paths to being released. One of them is by increasing your vidya. Yeah, so that certainly makes sense. That from a purely linguistic point of view, they are equally valid in interpretations.
In the Kundalya Sutta, the wanderer says, he begins by saying he goes from park to park and pleasure ground to pleasure ground.
Mm-hmm.
Various speakers defending their own doctrines and disparaging the doctrines of others.
Okay, right, yes.
But the Buddha says, well, the knowledge I'm going to give you is truly liberative rather than simply for social purposes and for status.
Okay, right, yeah. Okay, so I mean, on that ground, I would tend to support the interpretation that you give it. And also bear in mind that in many of these compounds, even in the minds of the native speakers of the time, one man might interpret it a certain way, and the woman next to him interprets it another way. Many of them might can hold both meanings in their minds at the same time. I mean, it very often does happen that you can hold both meanings in your mind at the same time. I mean, I do not doubt that there are speakers who, for example, would have heard the phrase Vidyacharana sampanno. Vidyacharana might have, as native speakers, they wouldn't have analyzed it, but they could have held in their minds both meanings simultaneously. Knowledge and good conduct, and good conduct born of or arising by means of knowledge, one or the other, and then simultaneously merging both in their minds. We can do that. Sometimes poets do it deliberately. My favorite example, I'm sure I've given it to you before, is the one from Thomas Gray's Elegy in a Country Churchyard, where he says, "And all the air a solemn stillness holds." Now, is that a solemn stillness holds all the air, or all the air holds a solemn stillness? If we put it in that way, with the verb in the middle, unambiguous. But the way he's put it, all the air a solemn stillness holds, it's ambiguous. And I strongly suspect that Thomas Gray meant us to have both interpretations at the same time, not to fix the intellect, view it as a kind of an emotional tone to the setting that he was describing there. So, up to this point, any further comments or questions? Now, in 15, halfway down page 40, the ablative case in To. In Vedic, Taha, it was an alternative form of the ablative. But It tends to be used not so much in a physical sense. The ablative case often if you're departing from something, stepping away from something, going out of something. The thing that you're departing from, stepping out of, is expressed in the ablative case. In the regular ablative case, but this alternative ablative in to, it's more often used in a figurative sense. In padipato, it's almost more in if you look at the example padipato from the lamp, there it's used in almost pretty much a physical sense, because the idea is lighting one lamp from another. But you often have this form of the to ending, meaning with regard to or under the guise of. For example, one of the, I forget which sutta it's in, is it the Satipatthana, or either that or a similar one, where the person is doing a body contemplation, and he's contemplating the body simply as body. One of the ways of putting it is kayam kaye samanupassati, using the locative, but you can also use the ablative there, kayang kayato samanupassati. He contemplates the body as body. Pattavim pattavo is another one. He contemplates earth as earth. In other words, in his meditation on earth, he's simply looking at it as pure earth. I like it, I don't like it, I'm here, it belongs to me, I hate it, it's too hot, it's too cold. It's just earth is pure earth. So his meditation is that is just he contemplates pattavim pattavito samanupassati, contemplates earth as earth, without any thoughts, opinions, desires, defilements getting in the way of the pure knowledge of earth as earth. And so it goes through in that sutta, which I could remember what it was now, the rest of the elements. So that is one of the other more figurative meanings of this ablative in to. Simon.
Yeah, I mean, we also find it when the Buddha talks about dukkha as dukkhato, so dukkha as, he knows dukkha as dukkha. Why does it take that form, do you think? Okay, from something, is it implying that it's coming from the real thing, that it's somehow objective, our knowledge is coming from something that is real? Because you could just as easily, I mean, grammatically, it could be the dative, couldn't it? He knows it to be this, or he knows it in this way. So it's just I'm just interested in why it should be the ablative when it's he knows something as it really is.
Yeah. Okay, we get to a refinement here. Thank you for raising that point. In Vedic, it was simply an alternative ablative. But then as time went on, and particularly when we get into Pali and into classical Sanskrit, this ending taha, which is ta subdotted h, and in Pali just to, had not always, but often taken on more of a figurative meaning and almost kind of an adverbializing meaning. So, like, he contemplates dukkha wise, or simply as dukkha. It describes the manner of his contemplation, or the way of looking at something. So originally an ablative, and then comes to mean the way of treating something, the way of perceiving it. And in the phrase dukkham dukkhato, samanupassati, or a similar verb, would be just sees dukkha as dukkha, almost in an adverbial sense. How does he perceive it? That's how he perceives it, purely as dukkha. So it can often have the meaning, as we would say in English, as dukkha. He sees the earth as earth, nothing else. He sees the body as pure body, nothing else. Not my body, my lovely body, the body I've got to protect, just as pure body. I don't know if that really deals with the question, Simon, but it's the best I can do at this moment.
I mean, it's a form, it works, but I'm just wondering why it should be to do with the ablative. I mean, the other thing I can think of is to do with decay or destruction, paloka. So there's palokato. He knows something palokato as the body as destruction, as falling apart, as
yes, that's right. That's right. I think it's come to mean as I don't think it has that effect and meaning in Vedic, but in Pali it's just taken on that specialized meaning of how you view something. And it seems to have a bit of a specialized meaning, and in the context of contemplation of dukkha as dukkha, body as body, destruction as destruction. It's just a specialized meaning that it has acquired in Pali in the context of the suttas dealing with contemplation. I did actually start to put together something on it a while ago. I think this has spurred me to finish or at least to round off what I started to put together.
It's a big topic because it's that whole issue about seeing things as they really are.
It's a very big topic indeed, of course, of which the grammatical ending to is one small aspect of that topic. Seeing things as they really are, you might even say, is the entire or a large part of the thrust and endeavor of the whole practice that we're doing. Yatha bhutam passati, sees as is, as things really are. I'm just going to
maybe a clue in that bit. I mean, because Yatha bhuta is how they have come to be, which has got some kind of causal sense, hasn't it? That the idea that how they have arisen, not just how they are as objects. And so maybe it's got that sense, what they've come from, how they've come about.
Because of the use of the past participle bhuta.
Yeah, I mean,
yes.
That's what it means there. And so the ablative would have that same kind of meaning that, where they're from, so to speak. What they're out of, what they come out of.
Do you know, I hadn't actually viewed it in that way, but I feel that there's kind of an interesting point worth following in the way that you've put it there, Simon. Because it, in our practice, we're always looking at how things arise, and the whole thing about conditioned co-arising. Is about that. Do remember, however, that this bhuta, although in form it's a past participle and it has the meaning of something that has come into being. It's often used in a kind of static sense of something that is. No doubt it is because must be because it came into being at some time in the past, which is why it is now. But sometimes it does have more of a static meaning. But maybe you're right. Maybe it's never entirely lost that dynamic meaning of how it has come to be, not just statically is.
You see a similar thing with other formulations of how things are, like yoniso manasikara. So that can be in the sense of the womb, the origin, where it actually comes from.
Yeah. Do you know, that's another interesting point, because this yoniso in Sanskrit would be yonishaha, and this shaha ending is another. It's not treated as an ablative, but it's an adverbializing ending. It makes a noun into an adverb. So yoni, the womb, yoniso, yonishaha in Sanskrit. I'm not sure if the word's actually used in Sanskrit, but anyway, the same in Pali, yoniso. It turns a noun into an adverb, like wombfully. Consider, as it down into the womb, the very center and origin of your life. Is it really, as you say, yoniso manasikarota, says the Buddha, really take this to heart. Take what I'm saying now deep into the womb, your spiritual womb. and hear those words there. So it's sometimes the so ending and the to ending, it can sometimes have that same kind of meaning, but the so ending, that is purely adverbial and explicitly adverbial in Sanskrit. Incidentally, it's most commonly used in numbers. So in Sanskrit, shatashaha, they came shatashaha in the hundreds, would be sataso in Pali. Sahasaso, sahasra, 1,000, sahasaso in the thousands. And ekaso, one by one, and so on. So very commonly found just to adverbialize numbers, but has a more profound meaning in the example that you've just raised, Simon. As in Yunisu manasikara.
Yeah, I mean, it's not so much the ending or the adverb. It's so I think it's something that Ajahn Sucitto points out, that rather than just looking at it deeply, as it were, it's also the idea of the yoni is to look at where it comes from. So to look at origins, the arising, as opposed to just being there, to look at it deeply.
Oh, I hadn't looked at it in that way. Yes, yeah. I mean, that certainly makes sense. All the more so if somebody of the status of Ajahn Sucitto says it, I will certainly take much notice of Ajahn Sucitto, who happens to be my current bedside reading, so a man for whom I have the highest regard. So I've got just called something up, and here we are. Actually, I'll just share screen for a moment. Going to share screen. There we are, screen 2. Share. Do you see an iPad on share? Okay, right. Okay, this is so, oh goodness me, started 5 years ago. So-called ablatives in ta/to. There's just a few examples, stuff I started putting together. Not very much yet. Not very much yet. The big idea is treating this deepam deepato padipeya. Yeah, so this is a quote from the Bodhicharya Avatara in Sanskrit. So, announcing something with my whole being, bhava, one's being, bhavataha, which would be bhavato in Pali. So announcing it here could have more of an ablative sense, but out of my whole being, not just out of my brain. In the Dhammapada 112, something sarato. Sara means the essence of something. Saratonyatva, sarang janati. He knows essence as essence. In other words, he can sort out the wheat from the chaff. He knows the real from the unreal. So the sara, essence.
James, just by coincidence, Ajahn Sucitto is giving a talk at the Buddhist Society tomorrow evening at 6:30.
Is it going to be online?
Online as well, yes, in person and online.
Excellent. Thank you for pointing it out, Jeremy. Well, what's he talking about?
Theravada, core teachings, practice, and culture.
Okay, very good. Thanks for letting me know, Jeremy.
Yeah, well, it was by coincidence. Yeah.
Oh. By the way, little digression. And you'll know that I'm no stranger to little digressions. Sara here, Sarato Nyatva, having known it as essence. So I think there's another passage where it goes Sarang Sarato Pajanati. He knows the essence as essence. This Sara, is it anything to do with Sangsara? Hands up anyone who thinks it's the same Sara as in Sangsara. Come on, Simon, you can't be... Oh, two of you. Okay. The answer is yes, it is. It's from the root sri, meaning to go. Well, one of the words meaning to go means to sri, to proceed. And it makes the verbal noun Sara. Why does it mean essence? The idea is the Sara is that the sap that moves upwards through a plant or through a tree, that which moves in the tree. And the sap then, by extension of meaning, has come to mean essence. And oddly enough, the Persian word for a soul, ravan, also means that which moves. So the Sara, that which moves, the inner life, the moving life of something, the essence of it. And Sangsara is like a completed going. And so it comes from mean going round and round and round, Sangsara. So the answer is yes, it is the same Sara. Visesa is something distinguished or special. Visesato is an adjective, which just means especially. So that's a pure. And did I say adjective? I meant adverb. So visesato is pure adverbial form. Again, from the Bodhicharyavatara, Father and the Son are regarded as one, but it is not so in reality. As a tattva, reality, and tattvataha, which in Pali would be tattato, but I don't know if it's used in Pali, it would be as a matter of reality, in reality. So there we see the taha/tho ending in an adverbial way, the way you see something, the way something is. Okay, this has spurred me to do a little bit of work here, a little bit more work on this one. Hang on, stop share. There we are. Future tense. Future tense is pretty easy. It's you normally just normally in Pali it's just formed by putting an IWS and is at the end of the root. So bhavati, it is, bhavissati, it will be. It would be bhavishyati in Sanskrit. But by the way, Buddhang Bhagavantam Abhivademi, and the Dhammang Namassami. Somebody asked me, is Namassami a future? The answer is no, it's not a future. It's a denominative verb. If it were a future, you could say Namissami. So somebody was puzzled why we were saying, well, I venerate the Buddha, I venerate the Sangha, but why do we say I will venerate the Dhamma? Because as if I'm not doing it yet. The answer is Namami and Namasami have essentially the same meaning. What's happened is this. You get the root. Hang on, let me share screen again and call up the iPad. Screen 2. Oops, lost time. Oops. Come on. Okay. We have our root nam, identical Sanskrit and Pali, which literally means just to bend. I mean, this is what I'm doing with my fingers here. Nam, you see, nam, to bend. But most commonly used, certainly in our Buddhist context, meaning to bow. You bend yourself at the waist. You see, you bow to something with respect or reverence. So that is the most common meaning of the common usage of this root nam, just a regular verb, namami, namasi, namati. And at the end of that, initiatory chant, we often do, Sanghan namami. I venerate the Sangha. As we know, it's one of the range of nouns, verbal nouns, where the stem ends in an as. So namas. Other ones are manas, chetas, tejas. There are a number of ones where the stem is in as. And that's the as that by regular phonetic mutation becomes namo in Pali. Namo tassa bhagavato, and so on. That's the namo. What happens is that in Sanskrit, you can very often form a verb from a noun. So mostly, the vast majority of verbs are formed straight off the root. Sometimes you can take a noun, oops, come on, go away. You can take the noun, namas, and then form a verb off that by adding a ya. So what's happened here? Sorry, iPad's gone funny. Why is it doing it? It's going weird. Why is it doing it? I don't know why it's doing this. How can I make my line little? Come on.
Looks like an ink block.
It does indeed. And it's actually becoming a little bit of a lesson for me in simply perceiving dukkha as pure dukkha, perceiving malfunctioning iPads simply as malfunctioning iPads that don't quite penetrate, if I'm very, very careful, into an unskillful emotional reaction to what is a mere iPad on my desk. And now it's not even deleting it now as it should. Okay, it's deleting it. Let's see if it does it. Okay, no, this is a sign of madness. I'm doing the same thing again, hoping for a different result. There must be another way of doing it. Did I hear an expression of mirth from somebody here? I don't know why it's doing it. Anyway, look, mercifully, it's come to 2 minutes past 4. During the break, I will see if I can rectify it. So I'll see you all again at 4:15 then. Okay, thanks. Thank you.
James?
Yes. Simon, yes, here I am.
Stop recording. Have you stopped recording?
Stop recording. Thank you. Thank you. Pause recording. Very good. By the way, when it says recording in progress, can you all hear it saying that? Does it come through to you all? Okay, it does, right. So back to where we were before the malfunction. So namas is a noun, which, as we know in Pali, becomes namo. It's the same noun. For example, if you add te to it, the enclitic form, the short attached form of to thee, that's what gives us that Indian greeting, namaste, homage to thee, honor to thee. So namami. So, oops. Oh, erase the function. There we are. You can make what's known as a denominative verb, just a grammatical word for it, a verb formed not off a root but off a noun. So with the inserting a ya, so namasyati I don't detect any difference of meaning between namati and namasyati. I'm not sure there is any difference of meaning. We can do the same kind of thing in English with some verbs. For example, we have the verb to revere, and we have the noun reverence. But occasionally you find the noun reverence then used as a verb, so you're making a verb off the noun. That's exactly the same phenomenon that we're seeing here in Sanskrit. And in Pali, this namasyati, by regular phonetic mutation, becomes namassati. Nothing to do with the future tense. If it were a future, it would be namissami, namissati. So that just explains that form. So that deals with the future, this form of the future. And finally, we get to, I'll stop share.
James?
Simon, please.
Before you go on to the next bit, just something about the future. I mean, this may be a bit of a rabbit hole, but there's a sutta that kind of uses it in a different way, which I during the break, which is the Dona Sutta, where the Buddha is asked what sort of a being he is. And it's Dona, the Brahmin, asks him, might you be a god? So it's Devo no bhavan bhavissati. And the Buddha answers, Nako ahang brahmana, Devo bhavisami. And obviously the Buddha is making the point there that he won't be anything in the future because katang karaniyan, he's done the job, he won't be more. But the Brahmin is using the future tense in a sort of an Irish way, like, will you be this? It almost as, and he uses, again, going back to it, no, as a little kind of a particle which can be used as an interrogative. Is it not? And so I've not seen that elsewhere, but the future being used as a kind of a suggestion that you might be something in the present.
Yeah. Of course, he's asking that. I think in that sutta, am I right in thinking that he's not saying, will you become a god, where it would be the normal use of the future, but saying, are you a god now? Yes. Is that what? Okay. I think it's one of these colloquial uses or idiomatic uses of it, where, might you be, could you be, just using the future.
Rather than the
I think will the result of this inquiry I'm now conducting be that it transpires that you are a god? And for example, in French, for example, you have something like he must have forgotten, or he might have forgotten. In French, you can say il aura oublié. Literally, he will have forgotten, which is often used to mean he might have forgotten, he must have forgotten. I think it's just used in a colloquial way where you're speculating as to what the true answer is. And maybe the use of the future is, well, we don't quite know yet, but will the result of all this questioning be that we will find out that you are a god? This is kind of just what goes through my head when I hear you saying that. It's certainly an unusual use of the future, but one can see why, kind of see why.
I think Bhikkhu Bodhi sees this as a kind of a punning on that use. So, will you be this? And the Buddha says, no, I won't be anything. So he's making the point about becoming for the Tathagata has ceased.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a kind of a pun on that use, use of the future to ask a question about whether something might be the case. But normally we would expect that to be in the optative, wouldn't we?
We would, yes. It just seems to be a colloquial usage of the future when you're kind of wondering and speculating and you aren't sure. And is your answer going to be that you are a god? And they say, will you be a god? Well, one can see why. You can often see these things better if you put your mind out of analytical mode and into soft focus. You're just trying to move into soft focus why you might be expressing it in that way. Very often that the soft focus helps when you're trying to interpret something. I've often found that if I'm reading kind of a difficult passage in Pali or Sanskrit, where you do your best to analyze it in hard focus and really use your brain on it. And then you can't quite get it still. So then you just retreat a bit, go into the more intuitive, soft focus mode, and often the answer just comes to you. It's like, as so often happens, the answer comes to you as soon as you stop trying. So you allow something else within, deep and behind, to come to the rescue. But it helps to have done the hard focus work first. And the better you do the hard focus work, the easier the soft focus answer comes. Like the Sanskrit proverb I've just given you, it is by effort that goals are achieved. The deer do not walk into the mouth of the sleeping lion. So make the effort, then the results will happen. Reminds me of the funny story about the golf player. In fact, he was called Player. It was John Player, the famous golfer from a while ago. Did some brilliant shots, and somebody said, that's just luck. And he replied, yes, that's true. And the more I practice, the luckier I get. So this explains the namasati. Then finally, we come to sandhi. Sandhi, it's the same di as in samadhi, and these words like that. It means sandhi means putting together. In Greek, in classical Greek, it would pronounce it synte. In modern Greek, they pronounce it synthi, and from which gives us the English word synthesis. So sandhi and synthesis are etymologically the same word, just means putting together. So sandhi it means putting together, it means what happens phonetically when one word ends and the next word starts. You very often find that that changes occur, vowels merge, a final consonant changes into something else. In Sanskrit, the rules of sandhi are pretty precise and inviolable. In Sanskrit, they're much more fluid. So the bit of sandhi that we're doing here is the anuswara, the final subdotted M. So the examples given are vinyanam followed by ti, end quote. You can write it as it's written here, vinyananti, where the final subdotted M assimilates to the following t sound, which is a dental, so the m changes to a n, which is the nasal corresponding to t, so vinyananti. When that happens, if it's an enclitic, it's commonly written as one word, not vinyanan, new word t, but the t is in writing is joined to it. It's equally correct, and you will often see, I don't know whether equally often, but you certainly will often see the written as separate words, vinyanang t. Separate words, subdotted m, new word t. You would still pronounce it as vinyananti, but you can write it either way. It makes no difference, and very frequently it's a matter of editorial preference. And some texts some prints will favor one form, others the other. It actually makes no difference at all. It makes no difference to the pronunciation or to the meaning. And a similar phenomenon, the next example given, yang plus cha. You always pronounce it as yancha, but you could write it as ya subdotted m, new word cha, and which, or you can write all as one word with the palatal nya, that's the nya with a tilde. One point I'll make on this last paragraph on page 40, that the subdotted m never appears between vowels. Thus, when a form-ending subdotted m is followed by another word beginning with a vowel, the two come together in Sandhi. M will generally appear just as an ordinary m. This evam attam, evamattam. That is an inviolable rule in Sanskrit. If you get a word ending in a nasal, if the next word begins in a consonant, it will be written as an anuswara, or in transliteration as a subdotted m. If the following word is a vowel, then in Sanskrit it would always be just a full consonantal m, then merging into the next word. Evam avadat, thus he spoke. In Pali, it's pretty much indiscriminate what happens. In prose, you will equally see both. And again, in prose, it's often a matter of editorial preference, whether they will write a word ending in a subdotted m, new word beginning with vowel, then write a new word with a space, or just write it all as one word with a simple m, not some subdotted m. Where it does make a difference is in poetry. Because it does affect the meter. So, for example, in the Karaniametta Sutta, Averang Asapatang. Let me just bring down my copy here.
Thank you. You all right?
Just about. All right.
Yeah. Looks a bit better than yesterday.
I'm chatting for a backbone. She might have been a nurse.
I hope you're not saying anything indiscreet there. Your mic's on.
Sorry.
No, not to worry, Jill. I don't know how many of you have got your Samatha chanting books there, but we do see a perfect example in the Karaniametta Sutta. It's on page 10 of our chanting book, 5 lines up. You see, Uddhang adho chatiriyancha asambadhang averang asapatang. Now here, if you look at the 5 lines up, asambadhang, new word averang, new word asapatang. In Sanskrit, that would be impossible. It would be asambadham averam asapatnam. because you can't have an anuswara with a vowel following. You will find variously one or the other in Pali. They are both permitted. For example, if from that line where it says asambadham averam asapattam, 3 lines above that, you have matayata niyam puttang ayusa eka puttamanurakke, not puttang anurakke, but puttamanurakke. So there you see where what would on its own be a subdotted M followed by a word beginning with a vowel. So it's just an ordinary M. The only difference that makes is to the meter, and it makes an important difference to the meter. Because if you're chanting it, if you were to chant Avera Masapattam, Avera Masapat, sorry, Asambadham Avera Masapattam, you'd finish the line 2 beats out. Because if it's written as and if you're having chanting lessons from somebody like Rachel Hall, that is a very serious error. So it does make an important difference to the meter. So if you look at this line, Ayusa, this is the Matayatan Niyam Puttang, Ayusa Eka Puttamanurake Puttamanurake, short, Puttamanurake. If it were a subdotted M, it would be Puttamanurake, and that would be a heavy consonant. If you're learning it from Rachel, that would be two claps long, not just one clap long. So the only real it makes no difference whatsoever to the meaning. It's the poet's choice, and he can choose one or the other, depending whether he wants a heavy consonant, depending whether he wants a heavy syllable or a light syllable for the meter. So that's the only significant difference it has is if you're chanting in unison, you've got to observe that subdotted M means it's going to be a heavy syllable, a sambadham, averam, a sapattam, exaggerating slightly, as opposed to ayusa eka puttamanurake. Hopefully you can all hear that difference fairly clearly. So as a result of all that, I would say it can be one or the other, makes no difference to the meaning. The only real difference is if you're chanting in unison, then you have got to get it right. So that brings us to the end of the grammar section. So before we go on to our text, is there any comments or queries arising out of that? Okay, so we can move on then to our text. So I'll just read it out first, and then I'll call it up on the screen, and we'll analyze it. Let's just read out the first paragraph of it. Those of you, you should all have the written analysis that I've done. So it's on page 6 of the written analysis under the heading Reading 3, page 30. And if you're looking at the printed book, then it's at the top of page 30 of the printed book. And it goes, I'll just read the paragraph before we analyze it. Yasmachakro bhikkave sakka akusalam pajahitung tasmahang evam vadami akusalam bhikkave pajahatati akusalam jahidam bhikkave pahinam ahitaya dukkaya samvataya naham evam vadayam akusalam bhikkave pajahatati Yasmachako bhikkave akusalam pahinam hitaya sukhaya samvattati tasmaham evam vadami akusalam bhikkave pajahatati. So I will just now, I'll share screen again and call it up. Oh, is the screen already shared or not? Okay, no. Screen to share. There we are. On the point I was just making about the subdotted M followed by a vowel, here we see tasmahang, it's written tasmahang evam vadami. Evam vadami, subdotted M followed by a consonant, is normal as you would expect. But here, this, if I'd been writing this from my own devices, I wouldn't have put a subdotted M. This is purely editorial preference here. I haven't worked out yet. I don't know whether the Sri Lankans do it more than the Thais, who do it more than the Burmese. I don't actually know. And for prose purposes, it's unimportant anyway. So, here we have yasma that we were looking at a few minutes ago. Meaning because, from which, wherefore. But here, yasma is very precisely translated as because. And that's exactly the meaning that it does have here. And the ko, this emphatic ko here, is not just because, but it is because, it is exactly because. It just adds emphasis that he's stating a cause and effect thing, the reason for something. Yasmachako bhikkhave sakka. So precisely because, O monks, sakka, it is possible. Now here we have our indeclinable sakka, which has kind of a verbal force. It was in English, we translate as it is possible. So akusalam pajahitum is anyone going to tell me what the root of that verb is? What is the
which verb?
Is pajahitum.
It's ha.
It is ha, yes. It's that quite common root ha, meaning to leave or to abandon. A bit irregular, as we know, because it makes its past participle. You'd expect to see hata, but it's not. It is hina. So hina means abandoned or left, discarded. And then by extension of meaning, it's come to mean a bit bereft, deficient, inferior in some way. And hence we get the term sometimes pejoratively used as the Hinayana, in contrast to the Mahayana, the lesser vehicle. There's a slightly pejorative sense to it. There's something a bit wrong with it. You've got a battered old Escort as opposed to my shiny new Mercedes. That kind of, it's the Hinayana. It is this verb ha is more frequently than not construed with the prefix pra, Pali pa, with the same meaning as far as I can see, just meaning to abandon, to get rid of. Frequently used in the context of abandoning unskillfulness, abandoning wrong view, abandoning anything that you don't want to have as your baggage on the path, as it were. So, and this is the infinitive form. In Sanskrit, it would be prahatum. In Sanskrit, you make the infinitive directly off the root by adding tum. In Pali, you can do that, but you can also make an infinitive off the present stem, so pajahitum. The reason there's a jah there is that it's a class 3 verb, a reduplicating verb. So you say jahami, jahati. You can reduplicate that, still a partial reduplicating. And a hurt reduplicates with a j. So it's made then from the present. So I abandon is jahami, and to abandon is jahitum, or with the prefix pajahitum. So precisely because, O monks, sakka akusalam pajahitum, it is possible to abandon, to leave what is akusalam, unskillful. Tasmaham, that is tasmaham, therefore I. So the yasma and the tasma correlate with one each other. Because it is possible to abandon the skillful, therefore that's the reason why I do say to you, do abandon it. In other words, I'm telling you to do it because it genuinely is possible. So tasma aham evam vadami. Tasma, literally from that. So therefore, I say thus, evam vadami. Akusalam bhikkhave pajahatati. Abandon, O monks, what is unskillful. This imperative plural ending in ta was on its own, it ends in a short ta, as in my standard valediction in my email, sukhita bhavata. The reason for the lengthening of the a is, of course, because it's followed by the t, and it just has that phonetic effect. Wherever you get a t, round the unquote t, it always, if the previous word ends in a short vowel, it just has the effect of lengthening that vowel. It's a purely phonetic feature, and it's got no grammatical significance. If the t were not there, it would just be pajahata with a short a. Akusalam chahidam bhikkhave pahinam ahitaya dukkaya samvataya nahamevam evam vadayam. So in English, we would begin the translation of this sentence with an if. But what's happening here is that the conditional form is expressed as in the optative. As you see in the next line, akusalam pahinang hitaya sukhaya samvattati. That's indicative, that's making a statement of fact. Samvattati, it conduces to. Here, samvattaya is the optative form, which in this sense has a conditional sense. So what he's saying, if it were the case that the abandoning of the unskillful led to, detriment and dukkha, then I would not tell you to abandon it. So you've got to understand the samvataya here as a conditional, effectively has the meaning of if it were the case that. So if this the akusalam idam, just hidam here, if this akusala being abandoned, or if this abandoned kusala, here it has the meaning of the abandonment of the kusala, but if the unskillful abandoned were to lead to suffering. So here we have the hina, and with the prefix pahina, so abandoned, from pajahati, present tense, pahina, past participle. So if the unskillful, abandoned samvataya were to lead to ahitaya, detriment, dukkaya and dukkha, nahamevan vadayam, here again the optative, if it were to lead to suffering, naham evam vadayam, I would not say thus. And in the next line, but it samvatati, it does lead to happiness, tasmaham vadami, therefore I do say this. Here we have an example of the dative, the pure dative in its classical Sanskrit form. By the way, this ending aya for the dative, we very often see it in the ahitaya dukkaya or hitaya sukhaya samvatati. He was, the Buddha taught for the hitaya sukhaya, for the the welfare and happiness of beings. This separate dative ending in aya, which we have in the masculine and nominative singular of the declension adjectives and nouns. This is the only case in Pali where the dative has a distinct form from the genitive. In all other declensions, and in all cases in the plural, the genitive has merged with the dative. Remember well, Yoniso Manasikarota, that in Sanskrit, the genitive and the dative are always different throughout all the declensions, but in Pali they have merged, except in this one case of the aya, as I say, for the masculine and nominative of the declension nominals. So samvattati leads to ahitaya dukkaya. Hitta is another irregular past participle. It is from the past participle of our well-known root dha, meaning to place. It makes it, you'd expect the past participle to be dhata, but it's not. It's just, it is hitta, so it's irregular in that respect. Its literal meaning is just placed. But then by extension of meaning is that which is well placed, that lands well. And so by extension it means benefit or welfare, advantage. And that's how it's normally used. Simon.
Yeah. Kind of an interesting doctrinal point there. It means benefit because it means kind of set up, in the sense that presumably if it weren't beneficial, you wouldn't set it up in the first place. But in terms of our future happiness or our future welfare, it links strongly to karma, doesn't it? In the sense that you set yourself up as something in the future. It's not just that you blunder into a heavenly realm that happens to exist.
Sadly not, I'm told.
Here, you kind of, you set it up for yourself. So, hitta is different from just happiness. It's the well constructed for oneself, as it were.
My mind at the moment is just slightly inclined towards thinking that's a little bit ingenious. But as so often happens, one week I may say it's a little bit too ingenious, and the next session round I say, I've been thinking about it, and I think you're right after all. My current thinking, I'm perfectly happy to recognize might be misguided, is that it's a little bit ingenious, but let it mature in my mind, and I invite you to raise it next time to see if it's matured in my mind.
I think that the test would be whether we can find something that is hitta, which is accidental, whether it's just good luck, so to speak, as opposed to that which is achieved by effort.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. The tone of the word feels to me that it's something done by conscious effort. fact, there's the well-known Sanskrit word, the Hitopadesha, which is Hita Upadesha, which is often translated as the friendly advice. Friendly in the sense that, you know, I'm giving you this advice for your own hita, for your own benefit. Yeah, I'll ponder your point as time goes on, Simon. But despair not. Many is the occasion when I have come round to your way of thinking. So here we have hitaya, but with the negating prefix a, which in this particular case simply negates the meaning, gives the opposite meaning, as in vidya and avidya. Very often, maybe more often than not, where we get a noun with the negating prefix a, it more often than not, I think I'm right in saying, just means it becomes an adjective meaning without something, deprived of something, not having something. But there are several important nouns in which it actually negates the meaning of the word and gives its opposite. This was a point which Duncan asked me about several months ago. Can I give examples of this? And here we have the examples right here. So the ahitaya, so the ahitam is a good example of where the prefix a actually negates and gives you the opposite of what was meant. Exactly the same as vidya, knowledge. Avidya is the actual opposite, not just absence of knowledge, it's the opposite of knowledge, actual ignorance. So these are two important examples of that phenomenon. Simon.
Yeah, that's how I would read it. It's like that nice word from the economists or classical economists use, disbenefit. You gain a disbenefit. How do we know from that it doesn't just mean that which is not useful, that it's just a simple negation, like you're faffing around, you're wasting your time, as opposed to...
It's kind of a neutral thing that doesn't, neither benefits nor acts to your detriment. The answer is rather the same as in English. I mean, does disbenefit, which I think I might be hearing this word for the first time from you now. Horrible sounding word. Anyway, I think that this you just have to tell by context. If you just look at the word ahita on its own, and there are contexts, I suppose, in which it could be construed as a thing that is without benefit, and ahitang kammang, an act that does not produce benefit, doesn't say it necessarily causes harm, but it might be a neutral act that produces neither harm nor benefit. So I don't recall that I have seen it used in that way, but it wouldn't shock me to see it used in that way. So it could mean either something that doesn't produce a benefit or something that is positively detrimental.
I'm just interested in here it's paired with the akusala.
Yes.
The not skillful. It doesn't, it could mean the unwholesome in the sense that it will...
That's right, yeah. Yes.
But it could just mean that the not skillful, the non-beneficial will lead you to non-benefit.
Yeah.
Your time, you're not getting the good stuff.
So yeah, I mean, I take your point there, but also here we've got kusala, which can be both an adjective and a noun. It's used for both. So akusala, it could linguistically mean either something that is not skillful, but it could be neutral, an act that is neither good nor bad, a neutral act, or could mean positively unskillful. A morally reprehensible act would be akusala. I think it's often a matter of usage what these things mean. Sometimes it's a matter of context. But here, you can tell by the context, akusalam pajahata, abandon the akusala. And if you, I mean, a lot of times during the day, we are doing acts that have no moral consequence at all. The choice to put on your left sock or your right sock first is kind of a morally neutral choice. At least I hope it's a morally neutral choice. But you wouldn't describe that as akusala. Akusala has the flavor of something that's positively wrong, positively unwholesome, unskillful.
I would think there the issue is the unskillful would be worrying about which sock to put on first, and that you could read that as simply be mindful. Whatever you're doing, you're probably akusala because you're not applying the mental skill of sati. So, get a grip, get on with it, and make.
Okay. Okay, yeah, the point taken, but here I think that the akusala element would be a lapse of mindfulness rather than the actual outcome of the choice, left sock first or right sock first. I mean, you could say that if you wasted time agonizing about which one to put on first, that would be just that would be simply a waste of time, and a waste of our precious time. And demonstrating a lack of samvega, a lack of a sense of urgency. So I was saying about if you have a noun with an a in front of it, it can either make another noun, meaning the opposite of what the noun was, as in vidya, knowledge, avidya, positive absence of knowledge as a noun. But you often find that it actually just means it makes a possessive adjective, meaning somebody who is without something. For example, as we just saw in that passage I read, words I read from the Karaniya Metta Sutta, asambadhang averang. The sambadha means kind of obstacle excluding people, asambadham without obstacle, averam without hostility. So you just know from context which it is, whether it's an adjective meaning without something or the negation of the noun. Here, I think from akusala, we can deduce from the context that it's the actual positive, that's the actual opposite of kusala as a negative thing, because we are specifically told that we must abandon it. And we would hardly be told to abandon an act that is morally neutral, but here we are being told to abandon things that are positively unwholesome. So here the context is a clear indication. So yasmachako, but because bhikkhave, O monks, akusalam pahinam, the unskillful, the unwholesome, abandoned, hitaya sukhaya samvattati is conducive to, leads to benefit and happiness. Tasmaham, that is tasma aham, therefore I say, tasmaham evam vadami, therefore I do say thus, akuslam bhikkhave pajahata. So this samvattati, this vattati here, in Sanskrit would be vartati. This vartati, the root vrit in Sanskrit, turns up in Latin as vert, as revert, convert, divert, and so on. All these verbs invert. It's that same word there. So samvattati is etymologically identical to the Latin convert. The meaning has changed, of course, but here it means to be conducive to, leads to. In Latin, to convert means to turn one thing into another, or in a religious sense, you convert people to your point of view, you turn them towards your point of view. But it is that same root. As we've seen, to divert, revert, introvert, extrovert, all with this meaning of turning. In there's the sutta, the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, the sutta of the turning of the wheel of the law. In Sanskrit, it would be Dharma Chakra Pravartana Sutta, which is the sutta of the proverting of the wheel of the law. We don't use the word to provert does not exist in English. It appears not to exist in Latin either, but I think it jolly well ought to exist, because then it would exactly reflect pravartana, Pali pavatana, the turning forward. You can provert something, you can move it forwards. I'm seeing some skepticism on your faces about my new word to provert, but I hope you see the point. If we had the word to provert, you provert the wheel, you move it forward. As in progress, stepping forwards. That's what progress is, stepping forwards. Simon.
Before it came into Pali, did the vattati, or the root for that, just have the simple sense of turning? Because obviously it's lost that when it went through into Latin, because it means to kind of turn to one side or whatever. But with, we have like Chakravati and so on, where it definitely means kind of circling round or turning around.
Hang on there. The Chakravartin is actually the turner of the wheel.
Okay.
You move the wheel, because it's an alternative word for the person in power. He moves the wheels of power rather than circle it, and actually moves the wheels of power, is how I understand it.
Yeah, but the point is there'd be only one way you can turn a wheel. You don't kind of move the wheel from one place to another. And so it seems to come into Pali in the sense of doing its thing, because it can almost mean kind of it is, or it exists, or it kind of does its stuff, doesn't it? Vattati.
It does actually have that meaning. So if you're just getting along in life, doing your thing in life, you use the word vattati. How are you faring? How are you getting on? That's the word vattati. But the idea is you're moving along, you're turning. The original meaning is to turn, but it's the way you can moving along, getting along.
And so, did it have that sense of turning like a wheel or circling when it first came into Pali? Does it have that original meaning?
My inclination is to say yes, but I'm just going to maybe just turn up Monia Williams on the point.
I'm thinking like in the West, movement or doing its thing, like getting along, tends to be much more linear, doesn't it? It's kind of going.
It does, yeah. Okay, here's Monia Williams on it. And Monia Williams will take us also right back to Vedic usage. So the root is vrit, and it can be atmanepada, or rarely parasmapada, vartate or vartati. Basic meaning then is to turn around or to revolve and roll. So that was the original meaning of it. And to move, get along, advance, proceed. So you can see how rolling. You're rolling along in life. You're moving through life, and then by further extension, just to be, to live, or to exist. Your life is just kind of rolling along. And to abide or to dwell. And if you're not vertate in your atmani, in your atman, in yourself, you're not in your right mind. But you can also subsistence. How do you get on? How do you roll? How do you make your living, as it were? So there it is. It's got that range of meanings, but the ancient primitive meaning is to turning or rolling. And you see that in the Latin root as well. Is in these words with vert there's always a kind of like there's a kind of change of direction to divert. If you divert something, it suggests movement, and you're pushing it away from its track. To revert, you're proceeding a certain direction, and you are reverting. You are turning back. And to convert, you're kind of either changing one thing into another, or say in a religious sense, you are changing other people, moving them round, turning them towards your way of thinking.
Yeah, that's the linear aspect, isn't it? That's
not
like revolving. I mean, you can't divert a wheel. You can provert it or you can revert it. Pervert or divert or whatever.
Nor could you have an introvert wheel or an extrovert wheel. But there we are. We have the extended figurative meanings. I just want to see, just have a look if I can find it rapidly. If I can find it rapidly, I will. Oops. I was going to check whether I'd found the root. Oh no, in my explanatory glossary, I haven't yet dealt with the Indo-European etymology of it. Never mind, I'll get round to that. One particular point. Okay, I know it's a diversion from what we're doing, but we had a certain amount of discussion about it I've just been on Green Street, which I'll mention to you because I think it's quite interesting. Let me turn it up. And that is, okay, we're completely on a bypath here. But it's very interesting as a point of practice. It's the meaning of chitta. And those of you who have been any way into Abhidhamma will know that the chittas can be described as even thousands per second, even as meaning mind moments at one end of the scale. And at the other end of the scale, you have chittas, certainly among the Hindus and certainly in Shantideva, for example, is Bodhicharya Avatara, used in broadly the kind of meaning of something approaching the true self, the inner light of the self. And it puzzled me for quite a while as how you could have these widely divergent meanings. Anything from something, is that which, speaking very broadly, forgive any doctrinal heresies as I say this, that kind of the light that shines through us at one end of the scale, and just rapid mind moments at the other. Like adverting to something. How many things do you advert to per second? I was quite shocked when I saw how many we can do per second in Abhidhamma. Wow, I didn't know I was doing that. And we have Shantideva saying, tear me apart limb by limb, take all my possessions, kill me, but do not steal my chitta. And clearly he's not talking about infinitesimally small mind moments there. It's the one thing that is precious to him. We see in the Pali Suttas, chitta used in a sense that clearly is not used in the sense of a mind moment, because if you look back to those of you who got your Geran Karunatilaka printed book with you, if you look at page 1, the very first reading in the book, if you look down to section 2 there, about a third of the way down page 1, where it says, Chittam bhikkhave adantam mahato anataya samvattati. The chitta, adantam, untamed, literally, leads to great, to use that horrible new word, disbenefit, leads to great detriment. And you can have the chittam dantam and the chittam aguttam, unguarded, and the chittam guttam, the chitta, if guarded, or the rakitam, samvatam, guarded, protected. So clearly, the reference here is not to mind moments. It is something a bit more stable than the mind moments. And I was puzzled by this until I checked it out in the Pokorny's etymological, Proto-Indo-European etymological dictionary. And great was my joy and relief when I discovered there are 2 entirely separate roots in Proto-Indo-European, one of which means brightness, and the other which means kind of adverting to something or observing or noticing it. And one is kai or sky in Proto-Indo-European, that's the brightness one, and the other is quail or quait. Let me turn it up here for you. Oops, I just lost it again. Sorry. There we are. So these 2 roots, sky or sky, sometimes the D or T at the end, these are Pokorny's expressions of the root, and a second root as quay or quail, to observe or to appreciate. Now, mostly the Sanskrit grammarians, I'm particularly thinking about going back to Panini, the great father of Sanskrit grammar, who was, we don't know his dates, but he was roughly contemporaneous with the Buddha, so around a quarter of a millennium BC, maybe a bit closer than that, but about that time. Mostly he was very good at distinguishing roots that had different meanings. For example, the root as, 2 entirely separate roots, as to be, as to throw. These are listed as different roots, even though they sound exactly the same. Another one is bhuj, to bend, and bhuj, to enjoy. Again, although they're homonyms, they are correctly listed as 2 completely separate roots. I think by an error, for which we can't blame the grammarians, they took this, what had then become in Vedic, looked like the root chit, but from 2 separate origins in Proto-Indo-European, they took them to be the same root and different meanings from the same root, which is slightly unfortunate. I don't think it was their fault. You can see how there is a certain semantic leaching in from one to the other, from brightness to observing and noticing. It's because, as it were, of the light in the mind that you are able to turn your mind and to notice and to observe something. But it would have been very helpful if they'd spotted that it was actually 2 separate roots. It would have saved me a lot of head scratching anyway, as to how chitta could have this widely different, differing range of meanings.
I suppose, James, in the Abhidharma, it has quite a specific meaning. So the Dharma Sangani, which is the first of the 7 books of the Abhidharma.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're sort of Chitta is one of the 82 Dhammas.
Mm-hmm.
81 are conditioned and one is unconditioned Nibbana. And then Chitta, being a Dhamma, is then categorized in 89 different ways,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's karmically wholesome, karmically unwholesome, or karmically neutral. So I suppose there, as I say, in the Abhidharma, where precision is really at the heart of the Abhidharma.
Very much so, yes.
Chitta is used in a quite specific way.
Mm. And in what you're quoting, I think I'm right in saying, but I'll leave it to you to correct me if I'm wrong, that chitta in that text is used as individual mind moments, even very, very short ones.
Yes, mind state, yes. And
mind state, okay, yeah.
The mind moment idea is sort of, I suppose, linked to the sort of the theory of the perceptual process.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Theravada Buddhism, the idea of bhavanga and jhavana and so on, and the sort of 17 stages to the process of perception. But as you were saying, yes, it's thousands can. I think they say thousands can take place in the snap of a finger.
Yeah. So that seems to me that meaning of chitta has its root in the one of perceiving, observing. It's an activity of the mind in response to the stimulus of what is seen or heard, or any stimulus of the senses. Roughly speaking, roughly speaking, which is a far cry from the kind of chitta that you can preserve well and guard well and tame and cultivate, which we do see explicitly stated in other Buddhist texts. And in Shantideva that I was just quoting, steal my goods, burn my house, tear me limb from limb, but do not steal my chitta. So that was the most, as it were, his most precious essence of him. So clearly a different meaning. So I think resolved by seeing that they actually do come from two different origins. One of an alternative form is the screen still shared here? Can you see the shared screen? Yeah, okay. There are many roots that either do or don't have an S in front of them. This is one of them. So sky, it would be kind of wonderful to think that our word for sky came from was the same as that. However, according to Pocorni, the Latin coelium, from which we have celestial, is from the root of brightness. And the other one, the adverting, observing, we have the Russian chestion. In fact, the Russian word for to read something, you're focusing on what you're seeing, is chitat, the root there, chit, which just seems to be the observing a purely mental process in interacting with what you're reading. So there we are. I hope that was of some use and might have resolved any puzzlement that you might have had. Slightly alleviated any puzzlement that there might have been with these wide variations of meaning of chitta. So we've come to 5:22, so we can wind up with the blessing, and I'll be next Saturday. I think we're meeting as well. I'm fairly sure yes we are. Okay, very good. So. Bhavatu sabba mangalang rakhantu sabba devata sabba buddhanubhavena sada suti bhavantu te bhavatu sabba mangalang rakhantu sabba devata sabba dhammanubhavena sada suti bhavantu te bhavatu sabba mangalang rakhantu sabba devata Sabba sanghanubhavena sada suti bhavantu te. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Okay, very good. Thank you all for joining me. And see you on Saturday, hopefully. some of you anyway. Okay, thanks then. Bye.
James.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.